As the whole world crafted without you in it. You ever look around and see the walls closing in, and every damn one of them built by hands that smiled in your face while they twisted the knife behind your back? Yeah, that's the moment. The real awakening. Not the sunshine and gratitude kind. No. The kind where your lungs burn from screaming into pillows, and your skin itches from wearing masks that never fit right. You weren't born the monster. They needed one, and you were just convenient. The lie didn't break you. It broke out. See, the truth's a funny thing. It doesn't knock. It erupts. And when it does, it drags corpses out of closets, pulls masks off saints, and shows the world exactly how much blood they're willing to spill just to keep their hands clean. And suddenly, you're not the misunderstood one. You're not the quiet observer anymore. You're the headline, the punchline, the horror story whispered in break rooms and comment sections. They point, they sneer, they repost, because admitting you were framed, admitting you were sacrificed for their comfort, that means they'd have to face the machine. And most of them are still cogs trying desperately not to be replaced. You were the glitch, the one who didn't follow the script. And the system? Oh, it punishes glitches, not with bullets, but with whispers, with silence, with carefully crafted narratives that paint you as a villain before you even know the story's started. But here's what they never expected. You remember? Every hand that shook yours while digging the pit beneath your feet. Every fake smile. Every checking in on you message wrapped in passive-aggressive guilt. Every damn time they watched the fire grow around you and asked, "Why are you so angry?" They don't get to cry innocence. Not anymore. They watched you collapse, and they didn't blink. They just filmed it. And yet here you are, standing, breathing, burning from the inside out. You're not the monster because you snapped. They don't get to cry innocence. Not anymore. They watched you collapse, and they didn't blink. They just filmed it. And yet here you are, standing, breathing, burning from the inside out. You're not the monster because you snapped. You're the monster because you survived what was meant to bury you. They slapped labels on you like duct tape on dynamite. Problematic. Too much. Unstable, and then acted shocked when the damn thing exploded. You know what's terrifying to them? You didn't disappear. You didn't beg. You didn't shrink. You adapted. You sharpened your mind on the lies they fed you and built armor out of every betrayal they served with a smile. You were innocent. They fed you to wolves. Now you walk with them, and the ones who tried to destroy you, they whisper now. They check shadows before speaking, because the creature they created learned to speak back. Your pain. It wasn't poetic. It was ugly. It was silent breakdowns in bathroom stalls. It was fists clenched under tables, tongue bleeding from biting it too long. It was knowing you were right while being told to apologize anyway. You don't owe forgiveness. You don't owe softness. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that makes them feel better about what they did. They want the old you back. Tell them to dig it out of the grave they buried you in. Because the truth, it's out now. And guess what? The mask doesn't go back on. Not after you've seen the strings, the backroom deals, the puppeteers calling themselves mentors. Not after you've walked through the fire and realized you didn't burn, you lit up. Let them flinch when you speak. Let them squirm when your name comes up. Let them lie awake replaying the moment they saw that glint in your eye that screamed, "You built this." You don't need redemption. You need vengeance, not the kind that spills blood, the kind that haunts. Success is one thing, but silence that cuts deeper, because they won't know when it's coming. They just know it is. They wanted a villain? Fine. Give them one with purpose, one who remembers, one who never forgets how it felt to be erased in real time. Every step you take from here, let it echo, let it shake the foundation of the lies they're still trying to live in. You're not back, you're becoming. And this time, you're not asking permission, you're not seeking understanding, you're not waiting to be heard. They stare harder these days, not because they see you, but because they don't recognize what you've become. You're not wearing the same skin they pinned the lies to. You shed that. You tore it off with every unanswered message, every backhanded compliment, every fake check-in that came laced with a hint of surveillance. They don't know how to interact with you anymore, because their scripts don't work when you stop playing your assigned role. They still try, though. Little jabs disguised as advice, backdoor apologies cloaked in humor, sudden interest in your mental health like they didn't help crush it under the weight of their silence. But there's no comfort left in those old circles, no warmth in the eyes of people who only clapped when you bled quietly. They want the tragic version of you, the broken one, the one they could pity without responsibility, because the monster they painted on your face. It was easier than admitting they were complicit. You were their secret fear. Someone who saw too much, felt too deeply, and remembered everything. They branded you a threat, not because you lied, but because you remembered the truth too clearly. Every word they swore you imagined, every time they twisted the narrative just enough to make you doubt your sanity, gaslighted until you questioned your own reflection, and then smiled when you tried to stitch yourself back together, with hands still shaking from the betrayal. But here's what rattles them now. You're calm, not passive, not numb, calm. The kind of calm that comes after the storm has wiped out everything fake. The kind of stillness that hums with awareness. You don't need to explain anymore. You're not clarifying your side of the story in group chats or behind closed doors. You are the story. And every glance, every whisper, every nervous laugh when you enter a room, they're the footnotes. You became the thing they thought they could control. The narrative didn't kill you. It unlocked you. You walk different now, not louder, heavier. Like every step's got purpose. Like your silence isn't empty, it's loaded, and they feel it. In meetings, in family gatherings, in the space between their small talk and your stare. There's no coming back from this version of you, because you saw what happens when the world needs a scapegoat. You tasted what it feels like to scream truth into a void and get echo-chambered into madness. You know now who runs, who folds, who builds escape plans using your name as the exit sign. And you carry that knowledge like a weapon, sharpened by every fake hope you're doing okay that came after the damage was done. They want to act like nothing happened. They want to hit reset. Pretend the smearing was a phase and you were just going through something. But you kept the receipts, not to prove them wrong, to remind yourself who to never trust again. You outgrew the version of yourself that craved closure. You don't want an apology. You want distance and silence, and enough power that your name alone changes the temperature in the room. They labeled you dangerous because they know what a cornered soul is capable of. You didn't snap. You evolved. You stopped waiting for someone to save you. You became your own damn reckoning. They don't know what to do with someone who no longer begs to be understood. They're scrambling to find the version of you they could manage. The soft-spoken casualty they could console with hollow words and back pats that always came 2 seconds too late. But you're not mourning anymore. You're studying. You're tracking patterns like a surgeon with a scalpel in hand, dissecting every interaction for motive, listening not to the words, but the hesitation before them. That's where the truth hides. In the pauses, in the nervous gulps when they realize you remember everything they swore you misinterpreted. In the tremble behind every "I was just worried." That really meant, I hoped you'd stay broken enough not to rise. You're not angry in the way they expect, not frothing, not lashing out, not giving them the satisfaction of the cliche they scripted for you. You're strategic now, measured, weaponized in silence, and that terrifies them more than any outburst ever could. They try to keep up, to mimic healing, to parade fake growth in curated posts and performative humility, as if the world didn't see who was holding the match while you burned. You don't need to prove them wrong. They're doing that with every shaky attempt to act unbothered. The guilt stains louder than anything you could ever say. Because guilt, it's like mold. It grows in the dark. You know what you've become? A mirror. And the thing about mirrors, they don't lie, they don't argue, they just reflect exactly what's standing in front of them. And some people can't bear to see their own eyes staring back without the shield of delusion. They ask where your softness went. It died quietly. In the same moment they stood by and watched you drown, not because they couldn't help, but because they didn't want to. Empathy died in that silence. Trust cracked in the weight of their absence, and you emerged from the rubble not looking for rescue, but building weapons from the wreckage. Every time you speak now, it's with scars, not visible, but palpable. The kind that makes people flinch because they feel the war you walked through without ever raising your voice. They called you too much when you loved, when you questioned, when you noticed. They mocked your intuition like it was paranoia until it was proven right. And suddenly they're rewriting history, hoping you forgot the original script. But you remember the first draft, word for damn word. They underestimate the cost of your silence. They think not reacting is weakness. But you're just calculating, measuring the weight of every betrayal like ammunition, waiting for the day they hear your name and flinch without knowing why. They don't realize what it does to a person, being erased while still alive, watching your name mutate in their mouths, turned into a cautionary tale, a punchline, a scapegoat, to keep the spotlight off their own filth. You weren't just misunderstood. You were rebranded. They stripped context from your actions and injected meaning that served their safety. didn't care about truth. They cared about control. And truth? It doesn't make good propaganda unless you break it, bend it, bleed it. You used to try to correct it, to speak softer, more palatable, to shrink your voice, so their fragile ears wouldn't tremble under the weight of your reality. But palatability doesn't save you. It feeds them. It teaches them that your survival is negotiable, and your truth is optional if it makes them uncomfortable. There is a moment, a sharp, bitter, irreversible moment, when you stop trying to be seen and start learning how to see. Really see. See through the pity, through the smiles that don't meet their eyes, through the carefully timed compliments meant to keep you docile. You start hearing things differently. Just trying to help sounds like surveillance. Concern for your well-being echoes like a leash being tightened. The questions aren't questions. They're traps, boxes, little cages they hope you'll willingly crawl into just to avoid making them squirm. But something cracked. And the thing that came through, it doesn't crawl, it devours. You don't chase approval anymore. You don't beg for understanding from mouths that only open to consume. You speak, knowing your words will be twisted. You move, knowing your steps will be dissected. You exist, knowing your existence is already an act of defiance. They used to say you were intense, too passionate, too dark, too much. But what they meant was, you couldn't be manipulated. You saw through too many games, asked too many questions, refused to die quietly. They built a villain out of your refusal to disappear. And when the silence didn't kill you, they panicked. They thought they'd turned the world against you. But the world's attention is fickle, and truth, it has a half-life longer than any rumor. It seeps, it stains, it circles back, like smoke from a fire they swore was out. You're not waiting for justice. You're becoming something beyond it, a presence, a consequence, the echo of every warning they ignored when they still had a chance. There's a cold clarity that comes when you realize you were never meant to be defended, only destroyed quietly enough that no one else would notice the body. They didn't want your side of the story. They wanted your silence stitched with guilt, decorated with shame, delivered gift-wrapped in the apology they crafted for you before you even opened your mouth. You weren't up against one person. You were up against a machine. Smooth, smiling, and practiced. The kind that knows how to use words like weapons and still sleep peacefully afterward. They tried to engineer your downfall like it was a group project, behind closed doors, over drinks, in private messages filled with fake concern and quiet little daggers. Just worried about you. Hope you're doing okay. The rehearsed language of people who want the illusion of innocence while your name burns at the stake. They thought if they broke you publicly, they could clean their hands privately. They counted on you disappearing, on you folding into the guilt like a good little storybook villain. But guilt never belonged to you. That's what keeps them up. Not your rage, not your survival, your lack of guilt. The emptiness behind your eyes where their script expected a confession. You don't speak in apologies anymore. You speak in facts, in presence, in the weight of your name spoken in rooms that once erased you. There's a language in the way you move now. Calm, sharp, surgical. They feel it in their chests before you speak, like thunder but like consequences before confession. They want to skip to redemption, pretend their betrayal was just a misunderstanding, a moment of weakness, a product of stress. But betrayal isn't circumstantial, it's calculated. It's watching someone drown and choosing to discuss it rather than dive in. and you remember every face that watched you go under. Not with horror, with relief. Because if you're the villain, they never have to examine the hero complex they stitched from your silence. You walk through places that once held your reputation like currency. You see the stares, you feel the recalibration in their body language. They don't know which version of you they're dealing with. The one they thought they buried, or the one who crawled out with teeth. And you don't clarify, you let them wonder. You carry your ambiguity like a loaded gun, cocked in every word you don't say, loaded in every smile that doesn't reach your eyes. There's a special kind of silence you learn to love. The kind that isn't awkward, isn't empty, but dangerous. Because in that silence they start hearing their own thoughts echo back, with no one to save them from the reflection. That's what you became. Not just the mirror, but the silence around it. You stopped over-explaining. You stopped trying to plead your humanity to people who only saw you as a character in a drama they directed and cast themselves as the victim. They only liked you when your pain was relatable, not when it got uncomfortable, not when it stopped being poetic and started being loud. They wanted scars they could admire, not wounds that stained the floor and made them confront the role they played in bleeding you out. They say you've changed. What they mean is you stopped apologizing for surviving. You stopped begging for permission to exist. You stopped editing yourself for audiences who never had the range to understand your depth. You don't explain the fire in your eyes anymore. If they're scared of the heat, they shouldn't have struck the match. You sit across from them at tables where you used to shrink, and you don't flinch. You watch them choke on the words they used to weaponize, realizing they don't work on you anymore. They lost access. They lost control. They lost the version of you that would twist yourself into knots just to be palatable enough for their approval. You feel everything deeper now. Not because you're fragile, but because you lived through the fire and learned how to stand in it without turning to ash. You carry your rage like royalty. You wear your grief like a crown, made of every shattered expectation they tried to bury you under. They still whisper. They still try to rewrite the timeline to make themselves look cleaner. But memory doesn't bend for convenience, and you've got years of receipts burned into your bones, filed alphabetically behind your eyes. They don't approach with arrogance anymore. They approach with caution, because they finally understand you're not unpredictable. You're calculating. You're precise. You're done playing roles in stories written by cowards. You no longer seek peace in places that serve you poison. You don't ask for a seat at tables that laughed while you starved. You build your own, with firewood carved from bridges they burned. And every time they see the smoke in the sky, they remember you weren't destroyed. You were forged. They miscalculated when they thought pain would pacify you. They assumed you'd bow under pressure, fold into their version of the story, and accept exile like it was a favor. But exile to someone like you, it's a classroom. It's where silence becomes strategy, and isolation becomes insight. You didn't just survive. You studied. You watched the ecosystem that spit you out. Took notes on every fake smile, every politically correct betrayal, every carefully phrased condemnation that hid behind just being honest. They threw stones with gloves on and expected your blood to wash off easily. But blood has memory. It remembers every hand it came from. It stains quiet. And guilt, real guilt, rots from the inside out. You don't call them out anymore. You don't need to. Your evolution does that for you. Your presence in the same room they tried to erase you from is a walking contradiction. to the lies they built are like scaffolding around their ego. You move like someone who's seen too much to pretend anymore.
American Joker here. I don't really think that you really know what I'm spitting. World. There's only one world. If there's no God, there's no peace. If you know God, well, then you're familiar with peace. No longer should I actually wait to die to get to heaven or achieve peace. No longer should I let my mental faculties enslave me into an eternal damnation. No longer will I accept a terroristic state of being and me waiting to die to go to heaven when this might be my only shot. This might be your only shot. This might be your only shot. This is your only shot. If you see something, do something. And if you realize that you're finally woke, well, no longer will this be your hell. Stand up. Do the right thing. Be a good person. And mostly, always do the right thing. And the truth will set you free.